Hello, and welcome to Let's Pour with Patty. Thank you so much for joining me on this wild and wacky ride as I experience the joys and share with you the wonders of creating with fluid art. Stick around. Let's have some fun. And as always, keep creating. Let's pour. So there seems to be a lot of confusion when it comes to mixing paints. And I get it. There's so much. I think most people confuse the difference between bloom paints and standard acrylic paint pouring paints. Bloom paints are bloom paints. They are house paints versus acrylic paints. Now you might use acrylic paints mixed into the house paints for the bloom paints, but the base is still house paints. The base is still a house paint. Your pillow paint is a house paint. Your pouring medium that you mix your colors in, your acrylic paints in, is a house paint. But that's not what we're working on at all today. What we're working on today is just mixing standard acrylic paint pouring paints using US Floetrol, also known as Flood Floetrol, bought at your Home Depot. I'm pretty sure Lowe's carries it. But this is what I mix my paints with. Now, I will tell you, and if you go back in my earlier videos, you will see that I had a different pouring medium. When I very first started, I, just like many of you, picked my favorite artist, who at the time was Molly's Artistry, still one of my top favorites, and heavily has inspired my style of acrylic paint pouring. Not completely, but you can see it here and there. I started off using her pouring medium recipe, which was something like 3 parts Floetrol, 2 parts pouring medium, like Liquitex pouring medium, and some GAC 800. And that's what I used to begin with. However, I was having a lot of problems with my paint cracking. Now, there's many reasons why a paint on a painting could crack. Maybe I wasn't dumping enough paint off of the canvas. Maybe my paints were too thick. Maybe I had fans running in the room and the top of the paint was drying faster than the paint underneath, causing it to crack. At a much faster rate. I mean, a faster rate, too fast of a rate for it to handle, I guess, to where cracking happens. So I eliminated all those problems as much as I could, and I was still having problems. I had gotten my first commission order and for a dear friend of mine, and I wanted to do everything to the best of my ability. So I went out, I bought 2 buckets, 2 big buckets of the Liquitex pouring medium, where they're like, I feel like they're like $50 a piece. And I don't even think I ended up using them, because at the same time, I decided to just do a couple of paintings and just use Floetrol, period, for my pouring medium, straight Floetrol. And I on those paintings that I used straight Floetrol, I had no cracking. Repeatedly. And I had never done that many paintings in a row without cracking. So I switched. I just used Floetrol, add a little bit of distilled water when needed. Ooh, I better fill that up. And I've been going strong ever since. So I'm a firm believer, US Floetrol is all you need. It's great pouring medium. I'm happy with it. So my next plan is to do this huge 24 by 48 inch gallery wrapped canvas. I can't see it just off screen here. And it's going to be a reflection swipe with black and neon paints. So I have to mix up all this paint. Let's get to mixing. So my standard, and I don't measure or weigh, I just kind of guesstimate. Say 3-to-1 or 2-to-1, depending on the paints. Now these are all of these except for the ones I'm going to be mixing with some TLP pigments. They are all tube paints. So they, for the most part, should be pretty consistent in their consistency, meaning they're all pretty much the same thickness. So we're just going to fill these up like just over halfway. Ish. I don't have all of the colors in paints, which is why I have to use some of these, and I'll do those separately because those are a whole nother ball game. So these are all fluorescent and or, which is basically the same thing, neon, which means they are black light reactive. So I'm just going to, I made them about 3/4 of the way full. And then, I mean, I can't make it full, but I get it close. So it's not exactly a 3-to-1, I don't think. And then, so it could be 2-to-1. When you drizzle it down, you would, it's okay, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, let's see. And I took a breath there. So this is what you would consider a 5-second trace. You just drizzle it in a circle, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. So I have to breathe. And my 5 is always late. But, you know, just drizzle it around. And how long does that mound stay up on top of the surface where you can still distinguish it? 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. And now it's pretty much gone. So that is a 5-second trace. Okay, now for this. I use my Joe Sonia. Put a little bit in the bottom of each. Try not too much, but because of the amount that I need, I have to use quite a bit. I really should be using a face mask with these. Put it away. And then I have to add this Liquitex matte gel. It doesn't have to be matte. I like matte when I'm using it for my stencils. So now you figure, okay, how much tube paint did I use in here? Because that's about the same amount of gel that I want to put in. It's about the amount of paint that I used, because this gel is going to make the pigments with the Joe Sonia the thickness like a tube paint. So I want to make sure I get enough in there. Now we mix that around. Okay, so now this is basically just like my tube paint. Very thick. I think this is the order in which they're going to go. They will be slightly overlapping each color. I love it. That's going to look amazing. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned a little something, think about subscribing, smash that like button, or leave a comment. And as always, keep creating, my friends. Bye.